Okay, great. So just to update everybody on kind of what we're thinking here, the idea is to try to expand Wharton's profile publicly as a leader in corporate governance by highlighting what I think is our unique advantage, which is the connection between having an amazing alumni network presently sitting on boards and the most research productive faculty in any business school in the world. And so, really, to have a hub that connects research with practice, but the practitioners being board members. So, if you look at, either Harvard or Stanford, which have, I think, the two primary competitive platforms. They both highlight the connection between research and practice, but they're drawing on really practitioners who are service providers. So, they'll have pieces from lawyers or accountants. I think what we want to do is actually bring the voice of board members to the broader field and do that by providing a platform where board members are discussing things together and in conversation with researchers. Alka and I are writing a book in tandem with this, highlighting kind of eight areas that we thought were, uniquely at the forefront of the contemporary conversation and governance. And so we thought in launching this platform, we'd start by focusing on content related to those eight areas. And so it's the areas that Maria circulated around our last call. And I know those of you that are here had expressed some interest, many of you in one or several of those specific areas. So the next step would be to actually think about what sorts of shareable deliverables you each are interested in creating for the hub. And I'm running a corporate governance class that begins in January to April. And we have 80 students with a wait list of 180 students, so a lot of interest in this, who are volunteering to be essentially your workhorses for the hub. And so each of these areas of interest will have 10 present MBA students working alongside the interested alumni to help and create content. So either as, your ghostwriters, or if you want to produce an interview that we could share, we have capabilities for all kinds of things. But I wanted to think kind of creatively with you first about the different sorts of options in terms of what kinds of content would you be interested in sharing, be it, a thought piece or a recorded interview or a video blog or something like that.
Great. And so, as you may know, I don't know if everybody knows, May is a professor at Wharton. I just don't want anybody to, to make sure that everybody knows your credentials. But she's been directly, charged with this initiative, right? So I think she's been very generous with our group. She did speak in one of our calls, but also in I think she has exposure also to what WEMBA students, what MBA students are interested about. And one other piece of information that I would give May is that you also thought that this would be beneficial for the MBA students, right? To get to know practitioners as well. So that's cross sort of, pollination of ideas and everything is beneficial for both groups.
This is a big part of it. So we have from the MBA students that I've talked to, they're really excited about having the opportunity to have a really natural way to network and get to know alumni that are situated in the field. And so this is, thinking together about how to create compelling content, I think is going to be a really nice way to connect alumni with seated MBA students.
Yeah, sure. So Wharton School undergraduate 2005. I'm a senior director at Alvarez and Marcel, which is a management consulting firm. And my board relation is I'm on the board of a college upstate called Trocaire College.
This is a screenshot of something May shared with us when she told us about this idea. And these were the 8 themes that you could sign up for. And maybe you've forgotten, I can send each of you, the themes, but that was only just to get a sense of where everybody's interests lie, right? And one of the good surprises I saw with May is that at least all of the themes have someone, at least 3 people, I think was the least popular one. Somebody is interested in all of these themes, right? So as you can see, is shareholder stakeholder activism, innovation, implications of the AI, corporations on the front line of policy, global differences, committees, culture, and private boards. Let me stop sharing. Any questions about the themes that both Alka, because I think May, correct me if I'm wrong, but you sort of commented these and worked these out with Alka, right? These 8 themes.
Yeah, and just to for purposes of the platform, these are really just the first themes to get us started. So to coalesce around some of what Alka and I have determined are these really central themes. We can go in different directions in the future. So adding different kind of themes, any things that you feel like you're grappling with in the field and would love to have more content on, just let me know and we can add those tabs. And in the background, to supplement the work that this group is doing alongside the MBAs, I am rallying researchers. So researchers not only from management, which is my departmental home, but also in finance and accounting and marketing that speak to these various themes from different angles. So we're going to be creating kind of complementary sets of research synopses to go alongside the content from the practitioners.
The other thing that I would mention, and I can launch a poll because that may be a good way to get the brainstorming going. But one of the things that we spoke about, at least at the Wharton Alumni for Boards group, thought leadership as you network your way into your next board or as you stay relevant is very important, right? And often, everybody will tell you, the way to your next board is through your network. But often it's not only about, having a coffee or, going to the tapas bar with somebody or getting to know each other through Zoom, right? A lot of times people want to highlight those things that, really can represent their expertise. And so one of the things that we did, we have a relationship with NASDAQ, and NASDAQ invited us to write articles that they would publish in one of their hubs. And there are various initiatives like this. We think that this opportunity and to have the Wharton brand around our thought leadership may also be really good to be able to showcase your thought leadership beyond LinkedIn posts, which are often, very light and so on. I think thinking through some of the themes or other themes, as May has said, and being able to, highlight your expertise could be very interesting as you are, along your board journey.
I'll build on that, Maria. What you said is absolutely spot on, and quite frankly, a lot of where my journey started. Right. So, as the practitioner to what it is you're saying, Maria.
Wait, Alka, tell us who you are so that everybody can get to know you. At least 3 or 4 bullets.
Sure. My name's Alka Gupta. I sit on the board of National Bank Holding, of MoneyGram, which we've sold to private equity, of Dwala Payments, and I chair Digital Frontiers. Another board as well. So I've been on over 50 private or public boards over my career, and my space is digital transformation, fintech, e-commerce, and cyber kind of reg tech and compliance tech, and all in the forms of either startups that I have co-founded and ran as CEO, so Global ID, to early days of Lycos, one of the first search engines that went public, and in the middle did a stint in strategy at eBay and PayPal, and a couple startups along the way. But that's a little bit of my journey. And I am very excited about, as May and Maria know, about the corporate governance landscape today. And Maria, to dovetail on what you were saying, what I wanted to share with the folks that are on the call is my interest in the thought leadership around this space started very much, Maria, the way you're talking about it, which is these experiences that we all have, everyone on this Zoom call. When you sit back and you think about lessons learned, so what's, how you're connecting the governance landscape with your operational experience, how you're connecting the governance landscape with where you think the puck is going strategically, if you step back and think about how you want to share that going forward, that's where a lot of this came out. So these 8 areas that you see, quite frankly, even before I got to know May, we had identified 10 areas of contemporary corporate governance like 2 years ago, right? There's a lot set out there today on corporate governance. How do you do this in a more contemporary way? And we had outlined key areas or key trends, if you will. And this has just been distilled. Then I got to know May, the work that she's doing. We've agreed to write this together. These 8 areas are the distilled chapters of the original book. Absolutely, they should evolve based on what's happening. This is just a launching pad, which we're encouraging to help kind of give some frame to the experiences and the writings that we hope to see. Hopefully that helps. I just wanted to bring the practitioner point of view, Maria. Absolutely, that's how it started, which is you guys have the experiences. It's a question of just getting it out there.
I did the advanced management program back in 2020. It was also a privilege to be in the board program with May and Mike Hussein. I think Catherine Nelson's on the call. She was there too. I'm particularly interested in innovation. That's where I spent most of my career. I think the time is perfect to think about innovation for boards in every way that you can think about. I mean, we even have Hollywood actors like Ed Norton jumping into the game with doing a better job of sort of like some of the compliance issues around board requirements and sharing of information. I guess my question would be, are we still in the divergent phase here, or are we trying to converge on things to work on? And that would go out to everyone.
What do you mean by divergent phase?
I guess
brainstorming, right?
Yeah, sort of, yeah, like if you think of like the double diamond sort of framework for design work where you're trying to go as wide as possible, and then you feel like you kind of understand the problem, you start to focus in on the solution. I guess, like, how read to you are these? Yeah.
We're in that beginning phase, right? However, let's be pragmatic so that because we may be able to work with the MBA class that May mentioned, that has a time frame, right? And so rather than just think of something that may be very complex, I think one of the things that we could think about that may condition us is how can we leverage a semester work of time, worth of manpower to work with us for some of the ideas, right? Some of the ideas that we threw out in the or suggested in the emails and in the sort of text that accompanied this invitation were ideas such as podcasts, an interview, a mini case study. I had prepared a poll, but I think there aren't that many of us, so that we can just mention them and then have sort of some commentary around those, right? So just to remind you, for example, if there is an experience or a board-related problem that may require some research, that lends itself to having the practitioner highlight the topic and then work along a time frame of a semester with MBAs that may give more perspective and do a little bit of more, work around the issue, but have the practitioner sort of embellish that with, real world experience. That's one idea. Another idea is perhaps, interviews that go beyond just, a typical Zoom interview between you and I, right? Perhaps doing something a bit, better curated to display your expertise around a topic, complemented with some of the research. We could do case studies, as I said before, on a specific topic. We also put the idea of a symposium, working throughout a semester for a final moment where some of those ideas come together for debate. I don't know if others remember or had thought about other ideas around some of the things that we can do. I mean, the simple thing is to write an article. That's where most directors on boards is doing that. NASDAQ is doing that. We get a lot of invitations to have Wharton alumni write thought pieces around their expertise.
I think, but what we could do from the hub side to bolster a thought piece is, if you wanted to write a thought piece, we could have, an MBA student that has experience in that same area actually curate a video blog with an interview of you about it so that we can share it on Wharton's LinkedIn and, actually get more views. And, I think the field is more likely to pay attention to content that is digestible through things like video blogs. Even, traditional blogs, I think, the readership is going down. People like to watch things. And so we can use the resources that we have here at Wharton to create those kind of watchable ways to share the content that you're interested in creating. Just to supplement to what Maria's saying, the other thing that oftentimes our MBAs like to do, and I've been teaching corporate governance for 20 years, so I've worked with many generations of these MBA students. Another thing that they like to do and they're really good at doing oftentimes is creating data sets that you can use to actually explore some of the ideas that you have empirically. So if you're interested in seeing, for example, how frequently some new compensation intervention is promulgating in the field or something like that, the MBAs can actually, collect that data and code it up in a way that would allow you to attach, infographics and test some of the ideas that you have.
Anyway, I'm Vlad Hogenhaus, based in San Francisco, Wharton grad 94, originally from the Netherlands, but now settled here. I teach occasionally at Wharton for the Roy and Diana Vagila's program to undergrads on healthcare. So it's a lot of fun coming back to help this initiative. And I think, and I'm currently on two boards. I'm in biotech, and these are boards that are enterprise values of between 300 and 500 million. A couple of exits. I've been on nonprofit board with the United Nations Health Organization, and others. And I think, digestible content, I completely agree. That's going to grab the attention, that's postable, that's going to give the Wharton board program a lot of visibility. I think what Aka also said is important to think about elements of thought leadership where we push the envelope and we are seen by scholars and we see the quality of the program. I would not underestimate something that you mentioned, May, is just getting the meat and potatoes, sorry, the basics right. What does a comp committee do? What does a non-gov do? What does an audit committee do? So that we really have the basics right for everyone, and then build on the more exciting, thought-provoking, thought leadership programs.
Yeah, Catherine Nelson. I'm based in New York, and my first board was a nonprofit board, one of the largest providers of foster care. And since then, I've advised private equity as well as more recently a beauty startup in the AI arena. In terms of my ears really perked up when May mentioned the empirical data. I so often, this comes from my perspective on the asset management side as an asset owner. And so often the predictability of revenue and cash flow streams as a value creator are underappreciated. So as it relates to those 8 topics, in our oversight role as board directors, where do we want to go? Sort of, what is the objective? And what came to mind was the stakeholder value creation piece. So to sort of summarize, in those 8 buckets, are there ways to tie some empirical evidence that will perhaps shift an organization's perspective. And the one that popped out to me was just predictability. And the reason I mention it is because I had worked with a quantitative team and had done some back testing around this. And a fair amount of multiple expansion came from predictability. The last thing I'll share with the group is I was at a NASDAQ symposium. The CFO of Coca-Cola spoke, and he mentioned how the company, huge global organization, how AI is impacting their ability to predict and make decisions intra-quarter. So it really tightened up their forecasting around revenues. And it's, such a complex organization. So it struck me. So throwing a couple ideas out there, but got really excited when you mentioned the empirical evidence.
Let me react to that, Catherine. And again, Alkan may stop me, but one of the things we want to do is set the stage now to make sure that there's interest, right? I am conscious of that semester because I think this is a pilot that we have to take advantage of. So we have to be pragmatic. So the idea is that Irma and I will take these ideas and we actually make it happen, right? So I think, unless it's something completely crazy that's not doable, we can filter those. But I think whatever idea right now is not so much asking us, right, to filter and whether it's a good idea or not, but it's our willingness to put a little bit of work and then work with May over next semester can be a great pilot to see how far we can take this.
And we have, after that, I run the corporate governance class out of our WIMBA program in San Francisco. So that's a really different it's a different kind of demographic mix of MBA students, but they also will be equally interested. So, this isn't kind of a one chance and that's it. I think we can keep it going and even tackle things in different ways and experiment a bit and see what excites people and what seems to get the most hits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Allison, did you had your hand up?
Yes, my name's Allison McQueen. I'm in New York. I did the Women on Boards Executive Education. It's excellent. I'm a New York Advisory Board member to the National Financial Educators Council. I have a background in psychology and research, and I've been a broker in residential real estate for about a decade. I'm just curious about the structure of communication and sort of what will drive the organization of the project. So I understand you have these 8
Themes.
themes or areas of, yes, right. And I'm curious if like the researchers who are involved, and it sounds like it will be from other schools, if maybe their projects will drive some of the content. Like, so people who are asking questions and generating data and, they're also thought leaders, right? Because we're sort of subjective reports, if maybe ours will sort of dovetail with their more empirical data that's getting published in academic journals. So I wonder if like that would be sort of a structure to organize, like basically too, in that light, what's the communication structure? Like sort of who's driving the bus kind of thing?
Yeah, I think, so I see you all working directly with the MBAs. So even I'd love to, if you're interested in doing something, for you to actually have conversations with the groups of 10 students that are interested in helping so that they can, help to think about the best way to show the ideas or creative ways to demonstrate it. On the research side, we are working in research with a really different time horizon. So, you all are experiencing things day to day. When we start to create a project to be published in a peer review journal, it's, a 2 to 4 year time horizon to create novel data, to analyze it, to go through multiple rounds of peer review. So, I think it's hard at this point to try to synchronize those things. But what I'll be doing in the back is trying to kind of cultivate research that a set of research that extends or is in conversation with the pieces that you all are putting together.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, Allison. Alan, you're next.
Hey, Maria, Alan Levinson here from Grosse Pointe, Michigan today. Was Wharton 89 along with Maria. Worked heavily in the automotive and mobility space, as well as data and analytics, most recently with General Motors, and now consulting to the industry and on the boards of two private companies and one nonprofit. One area that has jumped to mind to me that I think could be pretty cool and exciting and is certainly very current is for one of your themes on DEI. If we could try and come up with a empirical, data-driven means to truly show if DEI has had value. As we all know, there's a lot of negative trends in that area right now. And I think it would be quite interesting if we could, using the students, try and take an empirical approach to show whether there's value or not. I think it could be pretty interesting. And one last comment I'll make is I was at the couple months ago, the LGBTQ Corporate Directors Conference, and they had a professor, I think at a university in Belgium, who was working on something. I don't remember the exact specifics. I could find out, but trying to take a data-driven approach. So it could be interesting if we were at all interested in trying to take more of a global approach, not just U.S. based. There may be a group we could work with. So that's my
that crosses two hubs, right? Crosses the
Yeah.
theme of DEI and crosses the global differences as well, which is interesting.
And I think from the researcher side, one of the strengths that we have is, a pretty effective lens for kind of separating the wheat from the chaff in terms of the empirical research that already is out there, because there's actually quite a bit out there on this very topic, right? And so just making that available, translating what's best in class in terms of the empirical evidence we do have to a lens and a perspective that practitioners can appreciate, I think would be really, really useful. One other thing I wanted to say, kind of riffing on that point, Alan, is that sometimes the MBAs are really good at kind of thinking about things in novel ways. And just as an example of this, I had a group last year in California that wanted to talk about different types of diversity. So when you go beyond kind of DEI as we think about it and the box checking that like NASDAQ has put together, what are other ways we might think about it? And this group was a group made up entirely of veterans. And so they created, as an example of this novel data creation, a sample of all of the veterans sitting on boards and did interviews with people about kind of what that experience and lens can bring. But, I think there are really creative things you can do in any of these topics, and the MBAs will be good for thinking of other ideas as well.
Thank you, Alan.
Right. Thank you.
Julian, now it's your turn. Sorry about the wait.
I'm sorry. No, don't worry. I missed the hand thing. I apologize. Quickly, I am Wharton graduate of '09. And I work on a couple private boards. My expertise is in insurance-linked securities and other kind of risk transfer products. But the interesting thing that I wanted to note, and I think that this is a thread that I've heard a lot now, is when I was in school getting my MBA, one thing I realized was I did not get any training on how to be a good director. And actually, subsequently to Wharton, after graduating, I got my diploma in board direction from the Institute of Directors. And one thing that I heard earlier is that understanding the basics of these things, those things are actually taught at expertise programs like the IOD, which I actually think is excellent. And in a way, I know the Financial Times does. I know there are other programs that do kind of the coaching on, and I think one thing you said, May, that was great is more the novel thought leadership stuff. I think that's what is still missing, even at the IOD level. And I follow IOD. I'm on a lot of those calls too. But things like, for instance, when you read some of these more salacious cases like Sam Bankman-Fried and other fraud cases, and I should state this by saying I was actually a whistleblower for a fraud last year, a very large $4 billion fraud. And one thing that I was commenting on is, as a director, there are no stories out there about what happened on that board, right? Sure, we heard a lot about those folks who are the executives and the rest of it, but what actually happened to the board? And there was none of those in a lot of these kind of public and private company. I mean, we hear about. So I think that's one aspect of the research that might be quite interesting. But anyway, I just wanted to say, I think this is amazing what you're doing. I actually went out and hunted for stuff like this, and the fact that you ladies have put this together is pretty impressive. So thank you very much, and I can't wait to be a part of it.
Thank you.
And Julia, that speaks to exactly the inspiration for this platform, because if you look at kind of the content that's out there that Stanford's providing or Harvard's providing, they're bringing in a lot of lenses from accountants or from lawyers, but not from the board members themselves. And so that there's no accountant or lawyer that's going to tell you the best way to actually experience or work through as a board something like a major whistleblowing episode.
No, exactly. And I would love to share my knowledge on what to do, like the steps and everything, because we had to pay a lot of money to a lot of lawyers to figure it out. And it wasn't actually done very well, if I'm honest with you. So exactly. So I'm very grateful to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Russell, I think you had another question or comment.
Yeah, I really like the kind of creative aspect of what's being done here. I was just thinking, ideating, if you will. I guess maybe 10 Wharton MBAs with ChatGPT would do better, but how about something that's akin to life on a board? And so you've got one of these 8, maybe you have 9 different areas, and one of them's like, life on a board, and it's following a board in real time as much as you can, right? Because a lot of sensitive information. But I think understanding like what's it actually like to be on a board, what are the issues they face, what part of strategy do they own versus the executive team, things like that. I mean, might be really compelling. And I think for generations that have kind of now coming into leadership roles that have grown up on digital, having this kind of content might be pretty compelling. Just food for thought.
Thank you, Russell. Chris, you're next, but don't forget to tell us who you are and your Wharton affiliation.
There we go. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Chris McCall. I'm in Seattle, Wharton 94, like Vlad. I think we were in the same cohort D. Is that correct? Anyway, my affiliation with boards is with my own company, which was a small privately held firm that we did a management buyout of. We grew it and then subsequently sold it. And so we didn't have any outside investors. And so part of the issue and the question that I have for you all is, my angle on this is that early stage, how do you set up a business right when you don't have all the venture capitalists and all the bankers and everybody behind you, and you're trying to set up your own company? My business is a management consulting firm, but I don't do board work as part of my consulting practice. I do growth stuff instead. During that time, we navigated trying to make a board real when you have all of the board members are also officers in the company. They're CEOs and the CEO, CFO, whatever. So how do you distinguish the board from the day-to-day leadership team in an early stage company? How do you get the shareholder agreement set up right to grow the business? We also navigated a fair amount because during our time, we grew enough to where DEI became a very important part for us. So it's kind of an angle on the DEI with a small business. When you're moving away from being pretty much friends and family only as your employees, you need to expand the puzzle there a little bit. And then we navigated a very difficult time, not like Julie's where it was a fraud, but we had to remove the CEO through a really difficult process. We had to navigate that. And then we ultimately sold the business. So it's kind of navigating the exit as well. What's the board's role in navigating the exit? So it's, kind of coming at it from that angle.
Right. And there's a theme, right? Private companies need governance too. I think it is called.
Yeah. Well,
right?
that one, that's what got me interested in this is the language that you used on that private, because we had to learn, it took us like 4 years to learn that private companies needed governance. I started as just a board member, and then the last 4 years I was chairman of the board, and we created a unique structure where I was not the CEO, I was the chairman, and we worked to create an actual board structure that was meaningful. So that's what got me hooked on this. So anyway.
Just to build on that, just to share, Maria, if I may, which is that, Chris, one of the ways that this chapter came about, private boards need governance too, is because if you look at contemporary governance, the past 5, 6 years with FTX, SVB, Theranos, et cetera. These were private companies that arguably governance did not play the role that they potentially should have, could have, et cetera. And you're finding more and more private companies stay private longer because, right, you have the ability to access capital without going to the public market. So because of the macro trend, the double click that we're seeing in boards is that private companies are staying private longer with a lot of implications on consumers and businesses. And so how do you ensure that governance makes its way into private boards, not only at later stages, but also at earlier stages? And like you, somebody said this as well, what happens in private companies earlier is that people don't want to deal with governance. But there's more and more implications as private companies. So just ideas that May and I were talking about earlier, like imagine if somebody wanted to do a case study on FTX, right? What happened there? Or if it's an amalgamation of a couple of the financial services, whether it's First Republic Bank or Silicon Valley Bank, what happened in that month from a governance perspective? Those are areas to think about, bringing academia with practical experience as well.
Yep. And for me, I got started, my focus on having my own business started actually at Wharton in one of the entrepreneurial management classes 30 plus years ago. So it life comes full circle. So anyway, it's good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Jeffrey, hi. Tell us a little bit about your Wharton affiliation and what boards.
Hi. Well, I am actually taking May's executive corporate governance class on effectiveness. So I would encourage all of you, if you have not taken it, you should, because I'm learning a lot. My background is advising boards, specifically in the life science and healthcare side. And what I see is those boards are really struggling to stay ahead. And I'm trying to introduce a concept of agile governance. And what I've observed is just like in the financial world, where if you go under GAAP, there's specific GAAP guidance around specific industries and models. There doesn't seem to have that type of nuance and distinction when it comes to governance. And so how a life science company or a healthcare company defines from a practice standpoint ESG or risk management actually is very different than in other types of industries. And so my question maybe is, have you thought of that as maybe a ninth type of dimension is industry specific, as well as the other domains that I think could be very valuable?
These 8 tiles were just the beginning, and we can see where there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm and interest among our alumni and add new topics once we've kind of accumulated enough content to make that topic compelling.
Sad, thank you, Jeffrey. Sad, can you open up your mic and tell us a little bit your Wharton connection? Hi, Sad.
Hello. Hi, everyone, if you can hear me. Based in London, class of 07, 30 years experience in engineering, consulting, and banking, both in the US, UK, and EMEA, and currently an entrepreneur. And so my question is actually very aligned to Chris's question, which is how do you, the research question, which is how do you best form that initial team? And I think that will be really helpful for the younger alumni and the students, because many of them are very entrepreneurial compared to some of us gray-haired people in the room. And so I think it'll be very pertinent to them. The other thing I would say is how can we ask the right research questions? So May shared the list just there from Harvard. I think if the topics are themed around actual questions that are being answered, either from a research point of view or from a practitioner point of view, and then it could be an actual link or an actual podcast, rather than a general discussion, which is what we normally hear when we get to hear podcasts about boards, and it's all about process and all of those kinds of things. And I've worked in decision making and group alignment. My work is mainly now in ESG And so how do you bring complex stakeholder groups together and to get consensus? All of those kinds of topics are process. But now we need to move forward and say, okay, let's answer the question and let's, frame it around the question, research or practitioner, but also how much of it can be divulged in public? Because obviously a lot of the conversations are, behind closed doors. How much can be revealed in the research context to folks who are not behind closed doors?
And we are completely willing to share content or even to collect it. For example, hear from a broad swath of the alumni about a sensitive topic. We have ways through our qualitative research channels to collect data, qualitative data, and ensure its privacy. And so there are ways that we could, even collect and share thought leadership on topics when people don't want the names of their companies or their own names to be affiliated with that thought leadership, but it's just as important to share.
Thank you, Sat. Catherine, you had another comment?
Yeah, I forgot to mention earlier, Wharton grad 97. I was struck by a lot of the comments around potential for change. So on the last Wharton Alum for Board call, Suzanne Brown talked about most of the board specs were for CEOs and CFOs. And I've said this previously, but I could drive a truck through the risk factors that were added to 10Ks during COVID. So exploring independent thinking as it relates to diversity, I think could be absolutely fascinating. Having an audit committee entirely of ex-CFOs, could that create potentially more risk than value? So anyways, that was just something, and it does tie to some, more than one bucket, I think. Just throwing that out there as a potential idea.
Right. For people in the room, Suzanne Brown spoke to us last Tuesday, I think it was, with Chaz Kang. She leads an NYSC program free of charge for individuals vetted by a currently serving a CEO currently serving in a quoted company. So they vet their 900, I think she mentioned, candidates, and they offer this pro bono service for pre-IPO and their clients. And Melinda, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she's done 40 searches.
I thought it was like 50. I think she's gotten 50 plus people, but something around that quantum.
50 plus. And she did mention that the current sort of demand is for CEOs and C-suite executives. And I think Julie Dom from Spencer Stewart mentioned the same thing the month before. Anastasia, hi. You had your hand out. Sorry.
Hi everybody. Sorry for being late a few minutes. My name is Anastasia Roumeliotti. I'm also based in London. I'm a Wharton grad of 2012. I'm quite early in my board career. I've been 4 years serving in a few boards, and advisory roles as a non-executive director as well. And my two thoughts, first of all, let me congratulate on this initiative. I think it's highly valuable, and the sooner MBA students are educated on board composition and governance, the better their career trajectory will be. With regards to the value that I would see as a non-executive director from an initiative like this from Wharton. And that has to do with evidence-based research around board composition and performance of the organizations. And that can include, as you all mentioned, further service on diversity and inclusion and all the different types of diversity, including age, experience, different fields. We've been, over the last maybe 10 years, in a transformational period, even for boards, where boards have discovered that by hiring CEOs, CFOs only, and white men generally, here in the UK, they have this phrase of white, male, pale, and stale type of person, cannot really safeguard you for any potential risks, but also creates that myopia. You had companies that were selling products mainly to women and couldn't understand women's needs. And these examples can be quite funny if you have Procter and Gamble and other companies selling feminine products and haven't really tested the product to actual blood. Or like a company that I work for as an executive director, which is Kodak, that used to be in 1997 one of the inspirations for companies like Apple to grow to. And then in 2011, having to go through Chapter 11 in the US, to now being like a smaller tech company trying to find and navigate its existence. Board composition matters, and also board structure matters. When somebody has both the role of a chairman and a CEO, what does that mean for the governance of the organization? And how can we, with the power of Wharton, with the power of AI, with the power of MBA students, basically connect the data to statements? Just to close my thought, and here last 6 months, I believe it was, a McKinsey study that was claiming that more women in the boards would be linked to better financial performance of the organizations. Digging through the data was actually not really there. They were just interviews, not really looking into the actual performance of the organization. So I don't know who could do that type of research. I think there is a gap. And if we manage to have some good researchers that they do their MBA to help us with that, then we can actually change the board governance, right?
Right. Thank you, Anastasia. So we have 5 minutes left. I think, applause, because this was a good sort of, conversation, very open, not structured, but I think very valuable conversation about the different ideas and topics and how we can go forward. As I said, Irma and I on the Wharton Alumni for Boards end will try to ensure that it doesn't stay in a Zoom call and just, with your comments, right? So our hope is that at least with the people here, but we had another, 30 people, some of them couldn't join. I promised them that I would record the call, that we get this message out. And I had other people that didn't want to commit because they didn't really know what it implied. And so I think with, this information, the information that we've shared today, we have a little more clarity as to what we can do. So if you guys agree, May and Alka, what Irma and I can do is follow up with this group based on the notes and the recording on the ideas that came up, and then coordinate with you, May, as to what the next step would be on how do we actually do the matching, for example, right? Matching by a specific theme or a specific idea, according to the timeline for this next, and I'm calling it a pilot because I like the idea of piloting something because it gives us a beginning and an end. I know we hope to follow up with more ideas and more creativity around this initiative, but I'd like to push ourselves for a next semester end product idea, right? Of working with the MBAs at least initially.
Yeah, and I think one idea is we can collect from you all the ideas you'd be really excited to dive into. So what would you be really excited to have a team of MBAs to work alongside to create a compelling statement for the field. We can also collect from the MBAs what ideas they're really excited about and share those too to see if, you know, some of you might be inspired by some of their ideas and some of them will be inspired by yours, and we might be able to do kind of a two-way matching that way.
Perfect. Okay, so with that, we'll follow up with you, May, to collect that information. I'll send, you know, we'll send the summary notes, just so we can engage more people, perhaps that, you know, whose ideas may be triggered by that mail, and we'll follow up with you, May, on the timeline for that exchange to happen.
Perfect. Thank you all so much for your generosity and being here, and I'm really excited about the potential behind this.